Hey everyone, welcome back to my podcast, Joan's Soapbox, episode 1. The previous episode was just a teaser, just for people to have an idea of what was on my mind. So anyone who listened to that, I just want to give a big thank you from the bottom of my heart. I was not planning to create a podcast, but now I'm here. And if you're still listening, still, big thank you. I really do have a hard time believing that people really care about whatever it is that I create. I just make things, and literally if people relate to it or resonate with it, then that's cool. But if they don't, it is what it is, as I always say. And I just keep continuing to still want to make content just because that's just who I am. Anything that I set my mind to, I just want to always put all of my effort in. And I have been criticized before in the past. People would ask me, why would you do that if you could just do the bare minimum? And I always question that. Why would I want to do the bare minimum if I'm able and if I have the capacity to do more? And that's a whole nother topic that I want to touch base on one day. But for now, today's topic is going to be about overcorrecting. And you might be questioning, what is overcorrecting? Well, keep listening and you'll understand where I'm going with this. I was reading a book, and it's not sponsored. It's called When You're Ready, This Is How You Heal by Brianna Weiss. And I've read a few of her books and they've always been helpful. They're mostly self-help books. And there was a chapter in this book that was about overcorrecting, and I wanted to share and read a passage just for the people who are listening to have an idea of where I'm going with this and why it relates to me and why I think it might relate to the audience. Because after being on social media for years, there are people around the world who reach out to me and tell me how they feel, and sometimes I feel I'm not obligated to respond because I really don't have to. But the idea of someone going out of their way, making the effort to reach out to you, I feel that if it's harmless and they're just wanting to have a conversation with you, then why can you not respond? And it just gets tricky because sometimes it gets very vulnerable where people really pour their heart out, and then I feel that I'm not inclined to reply because I'm not a therapist and I don't want to say something that might not end up actually helping them, and I don't want to be responsible for that. But I do hear and see you, whoever you may be, that has reached out in the past and has shared with me your situations and stories and things like that. And I don't want to put it on record or on air what I've read, but sometimes it's very disheartening to just know that there's someone out there that feels sad or negative, and they feel that whatever it is that you talked about on your YouTube video relates to whatever it is that they're going through, or they think that you can help them. And I try my best, and it even gets me nervous when I see that Instagram user, whoever reaches out to me, just deactivate, because then it's makes me nervous to wonder if what's going on with their well-being, if they're okay, things like that. So again, if you feel in the need that you want to talk to somebody and for some reason you think it's me that you should talk to, I am always willing to listen and hear what you have to say, but just don't expect me to solve your problems because I don't know all the answers. And I know that should be an obvious common sense type of thing, but some people feel that I know the answers for some reason, and I'm still trying to figure out how to solve things in my life, so I really don't know all the answers. And so going back with the topic, overcorrecting. The chapter is called How to Know If You're Overcorrecting Your Life. So I'm going to read parts and then let you know how I feel or how I relate to the things that I've read in this chapter. When you were young, you were taught to override your instincts. You were born thinking you were okay, and then people started teaching you that you were not okay. Of course, this didn't happen consciously. Over time, you picked up on the rules and expectations around you. You saw what people liked and didn't, who was mocked and who was accepted. When I first read that paragraph, instantly I was triggered. The trauma of my childhood and the idea of that when you're a kid, you just don't know what you're really meant to be or what you're supposed to do, and you just do whatever. And that's why kids are so cool, because they just live life very effortlessly and they really don't give a shit about what people tell them unless their parents tell them to. And then as you get older, you mold as a person to either be who you want to be or be someone you're not. So reading that first paragraph, I feel that a lot of people relate to that. So continuing, as a kid, you were intrigued by what you saw when you looked in the mirror. You picked something from the rack at the store and wore it because you loved it. You felt hungry and you asked to eat. You had an idea and then act on it. You were effortlessly creative, connected, and fundamentally yourself. Then, when other people started correcting you, telling you how to dress and act and who to be, you began to realize that your essential instincts about yourself were wrong. You disconnected from your natural emotional navigation system. It became clear that you could not be trusted when it came to evaluating the quality of your own life. So with that, I relate to that a lot, because growing up, especially if you grew up in an Asian household, this is a common story I hear a lot. But for me, every time I would tell my parents what it is that I want to do, like if I wanted to join a recreational thing, like literally some sort of sport, I would be told that it's not okay. Because when my parents found out that I was very good in fine arts, like painting, drawing, things like that, my dad banned me from sports entirely. I love volleyball, I love basketball. If you see things I post nowadays, people are questioning like, what? Like, not that I can't like sports, but they just never saw the side of me. And I feel that I was more into sports than the arts before. And because my dad was very crucial and critical of the idea, like, I don't want you to mess up your dominant right hand. Very specific, because I write with my right, literally. He was just like, you can't mess it up. You're gonna ruin your future. So whatever, like if you want to play sports, you can't do it. So I didn't at all, and I get jealous. And jealous is not a good feeling, but it's true. I was envious of anyone who got to do sports because I was not allowed to. So that was just an example of knowing what you like and then someone telling you it's just not a good idea. And then you just have to follow it because either the person is superior to you and you just have to obey because you live under their household, things like that. Okay, so continuing. As an adult, you probably looked in the mirror and don't like what you see. You pick something from the store based on whether or not it will hide the parts of yourself you hate the most. You feel a hunger cue and then you question it, and then you question what you want to eat, and then you question whether you should have eaten at all. You know what you love, but don't think you're good enough to do it full time. You know what you want, but wonder what other people would think, and then stop yourself from trying when you assume you'll be humiliated for putting yourself out there. These are all learned behaviors. So I feel that we all relate to this whole scenarios that this author expressed, because every time someone asks me, hey Joan, do you what do you want to eat? Where do you want to go? All these, like, what you want. And if I say, I don't know, it's a lie. I always say that. It's a lie, because in the end of the day, most of the time, I really know what I want. Maybe some people don't relate to that. Maybe they really don't know what they want. Maybe they just like are having a moment and they just can't think. But other than that, I usually know what I want. And so it's up to me to admit what I want, or am I just going to just go with what someone else says they want and then just say, okay, yeah, I'll agree with that, but in reality, I didn't want that in the first place. I think a lot of people relate to that when someone else chooses something and you go with it because you just don't want it to be awkward or you don't want to be a burden. But in reality, it wasn't what you wanted. That was what they wanted. And you didn't want to make the issue a bigger deal, so then you just didn't share however it is that you feel. So I've been better at this, and I just tell people, no, that's not what I want. This is what I want. And if you want that, that's cool. You could do that. But I want to do this. And it's so hard. It was not easy to just admit and say that that's what I want. So don't feel bad if you're not at that point in your life. But that's just me sharing my thoughts. So continuing again, you think, if I trusted myself, I would ruin my life. You assume that if you really let go, if you really followed your heart and truth, you'd start acting on your emotions and your life would fall apart. Would it though? Is that what your most essential, truest, most fulfilled self would do? ? Probably not. That's the type of behavior we engage in when we've hit our breaking point after so much suppression and disconnection, and we can't help but lash out. You were taught that your natural instinct is wrong and that if you started really listening to it, you'd completely let yourself go. This is how societal conditioning works. It relies on you believing that your fundamental self is filled with malice and that only your self-hate is holding it all together. In turn, you unlearn how to evaluate what's around you and trust your own assessments and opinions. Then you end up engaging in one of the sneakiest and most insidious forms of self-sabotage. When we overcompensate, we try to make up for what we think we lack. When we overcorrect, we try to fix what's broken even though it isn't. And so going again, why I chose this topic is because I feel that it really resonates with me so much, with the idea that many times we just keep wanting to work on ourselves when really we don't really need to do much. Maybe there are a few things that we need to tweak in our life, but we don't need to completely just drop everything and then like start from the beginning again and then work our way up, because we already have a foundation. We have years of experience. We have years of trying to figure out who we are, trial and error, and we just have to trust ourselves knowing that in the end of the day, whatever happens, we'll figure it out, and not just continuously want to just be negative and just sink and just say to ourselves like, forget it, like that's it, I give up. And many times I feel that way, but then I think about all the things I've accomplished in my life in the past, and I'm just like, those moments and those times I told myself like I wasn't able, like I didn't think I was going to conquer those things, and then I proved myself wrong time and time again. And here I am again, just trying to figure out how to prove myself time and that I'll overcome it. So overcompensation is a little easier to see. We can kind of sense when someone is so grandiose about their lifestyle that they must at some level suffer from a low self-image. Overcorrecting, however, is sneaky because it can mask itself as humility and self-improvement. In reality, overcorrecting slowly steals your life, keeping you stuck on a cycle of thinking you're not yet good enough. When we overcorrect, we begin by assuming that every piece of our lives is fundamentally flawed. We think our lives cannot begin until we fix everything we can. Instead of trying to establish a healthy routine, we manipulate our schedule to the very edges of our tolerance and sanity in an effort to be as productive as humanly possible. Instead of trying to update our appearance, we try to reinvent ourselves as a perfect ideal, and we abstain from life until we have reached that goal. Instead of trying to develop our relationships, we obsess over who does or doesn't love us, how many friends we have, or the outward appearance of being connected, as opposed to the connections themselves. I'm gonna pause for a second. For me, it's huge when it comes to connection and the idea of just taking a moment and a step back and realizing what is in front of you and not trying to start over again. And people get it confused when I stop being friends with people, thinking that I just drop people and then go find new friends. But it really takes me a lot of time to admit and tell myself like this person is just not good for me and I don't want them in my life anymore. It's not like I change friends like every other year or other month, like as if you're changing clothes every day type of thing. For me, I feel that it is okay to stop being associated with certain people, but to just completely drop people just because you feel that they don't fit who you are. And I think that is something that can be further talked about, but the idea of that you can't expect a certain amount of friends to just be your friends for every other thing. I had to learn the hard way where you have friends for this, and then you have friends for that, and then you have friends for this other thing. And I used to think that just one friend had to be my friend for everything, and I really appreciate that person till this day, even if that person's not in my life anymore, because that was just a lot of pressure to expect that they could just be well-rounded that way. And so for me, again, I'm also a work in progress and I'm trying to figure things out. And so I feel that when I read this, I felt that I resonated with it, and I feel that people would also relate to what I'm reading out loud right now. So continuing, overcorrecting occurs because we do not have a concept of what is enough for us. If someone tells us we need to improve something about our lives, we believe them. We are so easily sold on this that entire industries are constructed around creating a perceived problem or defect within ourselves and then selling products to fix the problem they created. We are easy to manipulate because we no longer have a natural instinct that tells us what would truly feel good in our lives. So we think we have to keep seeking and keep fixing until everything is perfect. The problem isn't that our lives aren't good enough on the outside. The problem is that we were disconnected from our ability to perceive what's enough on the inside. Take that in. I'm gonna read that one more time. The problem isn't that our lives aren't good enough on the outside. The problem is that we were disconnected from our ability to perceive what's enough on the inside. So we waste money and time and energy and pain on ourselves, hoping that the sense of enough will somehow come back to us. Many people really do need to change their lives, but if you have a problem, taking action should eventually fix it. That's how you can tell the difference. Overcorrecting is a never-ending battle that has no end and never will. Real problem solving has an end point. So, the author gives examples of how a person can possibly overcorrect, and then goes into the idea of overcorrecting can also lead to addictive behaviors or other forms of self-abuse that either help avoid, distract, or potentially fix the issue. Think shopping or constantly moving to pursue a new opportunity but never actually settling. When we try to overconnect, we set standards for ourselves that are impossible to achieve because they are fundamentally unhealthy for us to pursue. This is because in the past we behave in ways we were taught were acceptable, and when that didn't lead to a desired outcome, we learned that nothing is ever enough. In turn, we became convinced the only way to exist is to be constantly proving ourselves to ourselves. We started overcorrecting because we were overcorrected. It is a learned behavior. When parents or guardians overcorrect, they do so in an effort to avoid connecting with an authentic version of you that makes them uncomfortable. Instead, the problem is placed on you. You are not trying to get better in order to actually be better. You are trying to get better in order to prove to someone else that you're worthy of their attention or love or time. I'm going to repeat that one more time. You are not trying to get better in order to actually be better. You are trying to get better in order to prove to someone else that you're worthy of their attention or love or time. That really sits with me because I always think there's something wrong with me. I always feel like, what did I do wrong? How can I fix this? How can I just be whatever this person will want so they could be happy? And then it's not fair. It's not fair because in the end of the day, I need to be happy with myself first before making other people happy, right? And so you have to own up to who you are. They should accept you for who you are as you accept them for who they are. And you shouldn't have to change who you are in order for people to like you. That is pretty much why people overcorrect, and how it's really sick to know that people or industries, as they say, take advantage of the idea like these are people's insecurities. So we're gonna just make stuff so then they'll want to buy it, so they will be able to feel like they're improving their lives or themselves, and people will like them more by getting our product. And that sucks, that how people don't realize that. They just think that, oh, I'm cool for just having this thing, but in reality it's like, do you really want that? Because it is okay if you really do, but if you don't and you're just doing it for the hype, it's just terrible. So that is why overcorrecting becomes such a vicious cycle. Your worth is determined by an abstract idea of how you think other people see you, which is a meta perception. You can't know what people really think, so you assume the worst and go from there. Then you learn hypervigilance. Over time, you recondition yourself to focus so intensely on the negative you stop seeing anything else. You adopt the behavior that hurt you so it can no longer be used against you. Repeat that again. You adopt that behavior that hurt you so it can no longer be used against you. You think you're getting ahead of the curve here. If you can identify, list, and try to attack every possible fault someone could find with you, then they cannot disappoint you, reject you, or hurt you. You're pulling an 8 Mile, your flaws are on the table, except this is not how it works, not even a little bit. You were taught that your imperfections were the reason you couldn't receive connection. In adulthood, you interpreted this as your imperfections being the reason you can't start your life. You either don't know how to connect or don't trust connection. Your life goes on pause and you scramble to fix a problem that was never a problem in the first place, which means that you're never going to get the result you truly want. You will only ever be frustrated and waiting. The root of overcorrecting is not feeling good enough. You don't need to try to force yourself to stop the overcorrecting behavior. You just need to teach yourself that you are enough. Repeat that again. You just need to teach yourself that you are enough. This sounds hard, but it's actually simple. And then she gives examples to how you do it. Reconnect with your honest opinions. For example, if this is what you like own up to it. 2, pay attention to your most basic instincts. 3, grant other people your approval. This probably seems totally backwards, but to feel as though you are enough, you must begin validating other people first. When you judge other people, which everyone does, you essentially set up a rule for yourself. If you see a successful person, grow envious of them, and then say to yourself, well, they aren't that great. You've set the standard that you must now achieve more than them to be good enough. Over time, this bar goes so high that you cannot possibly reach it. What you're really trying to do is be better than those people because you still think worthiness and connection is a competition, a game you can be. Instead of if you start supporting, appreciating and validating people for who they are, how they look, and what they are doing, the grace will naturally extend back to your life. 4. Stop taking everything personally. This is what happens when you start overcorrecting in the first place. People around you project issues they had with themselves onto you, and then you adopt them as your own. So when someone tells you what's up and how they feel about you, that doesn't mean that you have to believe it entirely or at all. You have to know who you are. And here it says you can't stop overcorrecting your life because you can't fix something that isn't broken. When something in your life really does need to change, you will know. You will know if you have a real problem, and you will probably be able to sense it if you're overcorrecting. You'll sense it because deep down, the little voice you shut out so many years ago is still there, still telling you this truth. And it just goes on and on. But that's literally a lot of information that probably you'll need to play back and listen again. But that's something that I've been reading on and focusing on and learning about. The idea of overcorrecting and just telling myself that I need to accept who I am and not second guess it and not feel bad if this is who I am and people just make me feel that I am not enough. So that was a lot. And if you have any thoughts, comments, feelings, you know what to do. You can email me, send a message under this video if you're watching on YouTube, and that's where I'm gonna leave it at that. Stay tuned till the next episode. I'm excited to touch base on very in-depth conversations on things that I just really resonate with, that I feel that others can relate to too. So thank you again, and sayonara. It's the end of the video, so don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't, it will help me in the long run. Okay, bye.